Hello everyone. So I'm going to go through the steps on how you would create the square using Geogebra. First thing is make sure that you are on the period 5 folder, and I'll start with the red folder here. I'm going to go ahead and select this week's folder, and I'll go right into the main activity. Within the main activity, I'm now going to select the Geogebra web link. Now once this loads, what I want to do is clean up my page a little bit, but I have to check a few things first. So I'm going to click on these three lines, and if I've done this correctly, my name should be there. This is assuming that you have already signed in. If not, it's going to say sign in using Google, but make sure it's linked to your LAUSD account. Since mine already has the name there, I'm just going to continue. I'll click here where the circle and triangle icon are, and I'm going to get rid of the X and Y axis. So I'll click here, and I don't want to see the grid, so I'll click the grid and I'll click blank. Now what I want to do is create a square, so the first thing I'm going to do is go to my toolbar here, and I'm going to select the third tool over and select something called a segment. I will start by just clicking here. It says select 2 points of precision, so I'll click here and I'll spread it out and click there. Now what I do is every time I finish one step, I usually select my arrow key. I can do it by clicking on the arrow directly, or if you are using a PC, you can just press escape key on the keyboard, the ESC key. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go all the way over to the circle tool, and when I click on that, I want you to notice that every time I click on something, I get this little gray box in the bottom, and that gives me instructions on how to do the steps. So in this one, I got to select a center point and then an additional point after. Okay, so I'll select here, and I'll start by selecting A. I'll move across and select B. Now once again, I'm going to go ahead and click on the arrow key, and what I want to do is I want to put this circle a little bit more centered and maybe adjust it a little bit so it's not so big. I don't want it to be that big on my screen. The next thing I'm going to do is, I know that a square has 90-degree angles on each corner, and so when I think of a 90-degree angle in this situation, it would have to be perpendicular to the line that's already there. Fortunately, if I go over to the fourth tool, there's a link there that gives me the choice to put in a perpendicular line. So I'll go ahead and do that. Notice what it says, select a point and a perpendicular line. So here's my point, and here's the line that I'm going to use. I'll do the same thing with B. Here's my point and the line I'm going to use. Since I'm done with these perpendicular lines, I'll go back to the arrow tool. And what I want to do now is I want to create, well, I have my 90 degrees, but a square doesn't have one side longer than the other. They're supposed to be the same size. So to me, I think about it as having the same radius. So what I'll do now is I'm going to overlap a segment on top of the line that's already there. I'll do it this way. I'll start by selecting A, click on it, and then I'm going to put a point right at the intersection of the circle with the line. So right up here. That gives me a new point C, and this allows me to take care of adding another perpendicular so that it seems to cut across this way, also at 90 degrees. So I'll do this. I'll select the line and this point. Kind of backwards from the first one, but it's the same set of steps, just reversed. With this, I'll go back to my segment tool, and I will start with point C and all the way to the intersection of these two lines. That gives me a point D, and then from there connect it all the way down to B. Now that should allow me to now select my arrow, and what that does is it actually creates a square for me, but I have all this stuff in the way. So what I'll do now is, notice how I left this open. I'm going to begin by clicking on the circle, and then this changes, the icons change, and I'm going to select this piece here with this choice. That now makes my circle kind of like little broken dots. I'll do the same thing with this horizontal long line, and I'll do that with each of the two large vertical lines. Notice I'm not going to select inside of the square area, so I'll select away from it here, and maybe up here. Now this should make it look as if this line is solid for the square, and I'm going to test it by moving points. And what I mean by testing it is I want to make sure that the size changes. I want to make sure that it moves around, maybe rotates, but no matter what I do to it, I end up with a square. Now that I'm happy that it's behaving the way that I want, I'm going to go back to the 3 lines, and I am going to go ahead and save my work. Now I'm going to call this square project. And the thing about it is that when I say square project, I want to make sure that here it says shared, and then I can go ahead and save. Once I have successfully saved it, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and set it up so that I can share my work. So I'll click here where it says share. And all I really got to do is copy this link. So I'll press the word copy, and that's it. So now what I'm going to do is I'll go back to my folder, and here all I really have to do is select where it says square project. So I'll switch the page around. If I click there, I'm going to get a rubric with what I'm looking for. And in here, you'll actually see something that says submit assignment, or it'll say submission. On mine, it doesn't quite let me. Now, on yours, you'll have that link available, so you would just go ahead and click on it, and then you would post the link there. Okay? Now, an alternative way of doing that is to open up your email. I'm going to be using this one. And so when you open up your email, all you got to do is select a new one. You would type my address. My email address is dau8277@lausd.net. The subject, you would give me a subject, which is a square project. And then in here, you would go ahead and simply paste the link of what you copied from Geogebra. So on most computers, all that really is would be Control V. Once you paste the link of your particular file, just press enter one time. And just for me, so that I just have this covered, make sure you include your name. So that would be include your first and last. Sometimes, especially when I get the email, I'll see the email address, but it won't necessarily tell me who the person is. And so that sometimes becomes an issue. So before you send it, just click that. Once you're done, press send, and then that's it. If this still doesn't quite clarify it, please send me an email, shoot me an email asking more questions, and I'll try to answer them as quickly as possible.